So that is pending arraignment, last I knew. I believe he didn't show up with the first arraignment, so they rescheduled it. And now they're, typically if somebody's out, hasn't been arrested, they just send them a notice, this is your day to show up for arraignment, unless they feel there's a risk to the community. Then we arrest them and hold them. So yes, there was that indictment.
Could I ask a question here?
Mhm.
And I'll preface it by, I realize you're busy and you're a small department and you do excellent work, but I will defer to what the other two selectmen. We receive on a weekly basis welfare cases, interrogatories from lawyers. In your experience, is there any way for you to brief us on some of these cases? But I will defer to my colleagues as to how we do that. But
I don't know, what would be the benefit of the information from our standpoint, I guess, that would be my question.
the same reason why I like to know what driveways are being put in, what welfare cases. People do a nice job, but I take my job real serious here. But I'll defer to your judgment.
I guess I would say that we are engaged with welfare cases as we should be, okay, because we have a welfare obligation under the law.
We're the welfare agents.
Hmm?
We're the welfare agents.
Yeah,
So
that's right. And
it's a little different.
driveway permits onto town roads, it's certainly something that affects the maintenance of the roads, and thereby is something that it's important that we're aware of. It's not clear to me what you're looking for here from Chief Shigori, that fits within what we've got to stay on top of. So, I mean, we all like to know what's going on in town, no question about that. And I think a lot of what goes on in police work, as it relates to interaction with folks, has a level of confidentiality associated with it. It's my hope that always those situations are considered in a balanced manner, so that information that can be available to people to inform them about what's going on in town is made available. And if, for instance, there's awareness by neighbors of force involvement at this neighbor's house, there's at least that we can acknowledge publicly that to the extent that it doesn't invade privacy, that something is going on. Because at any time those sorts of things are totally shut down in terms of information available to folks, there tends to foster a, well, it's everything's a deep, dark secret.
The incident on Bay Road was a gas leak. It was a thought that someone had tampered with some propane tanks outside a house. Obviously, it's very dangerous.
Mhm.
So we're looking into that. And the cases work at the county attorney's office to see
What?
what can be done.
Yeah, okay.
That's where that's
good.
at. These,
And you've listed your arrests, and that's certainly cognizant of the due process that we have here in this country. Once a person's arrested, it's public.
it's public information.
It's a minor.
They actually passed a law a few years ago mandating certain information be public about arrests, which I thought was unfortunate in some ways. I understand it because some places were saying absolutely nothing,
Yeah.
but on the other hand, what they kind of went, well, anyway.
Well, a lot of times what laws that get enacted and regulations get changed are done to address an extreme situation, but it affects everybody. So it's the extreme guy that forces everybody else to do things a little bit differently. But I would certainly hope that we can always make as much information as possible available. And again, not looking to disrespect privacy or anything like that, but if it's something that goes on that's visible to the public, then at least we need to speak to the fact that something went on. And if it's not appropriate to get into investigative matters, certainly that makes sense.
With the like the incident, talking about the aggravated assault, when it goes up to the county attorney's office and indictment, I can't say anything because grand
Right.
jury stuff is
Sealed, right.
sealed. And then the problem is I don't know if an arrest is made or if they've called, because a case is handled by the sheriff's department. And I wouldn't know necessarily
So they
about
don't
the
notify
arraignment.
you?
I'm not, in this case, they didn't notify me, it's
So
like
you
someone.
weren't involved in the incident at all?
Oh, no, we did the incident, we sent it
So
up.
they need to inform you if they come back with an arrest warrant from the grand jury?
Yeah, and I think we got one coming up that I believe we will be notified on.
Well, you may call the sheriff and tell him that he needs to notify you.
Yeah, but in this particular case of the aggravated assault, they mailed a notice saying show up for arraignment. I don't know when that is, because I'm not a party. You know, the county attorney's office and the defense are the parties to that, and, you know, if they work out something, I may just be asked, you know, are you okay with this? You know, that's kind of a thing. So that's where that particular case is at, is they're negotiating, I think, as to where that goes.
I got a couple, and not to avoid the issue,
No,
Lloyd, I
you
think we'll
handle
probably
it.
come
Sure.
back to it at some point in time.
Let's think about it.
On your statistics, is this sheet year-to-date, is that what I'm?
Yes, year to date, it says right activity from January 1 to end of February.
This does, I don't see that this does. So at any rate, am I missing it? Oh, okay, there it is, thanks. Okay, so from January 1 till the end of February, let's say 60 days. And I appreciate all the good work you do. Before I'll preface it by saying I think you're a wonderful police chief. You've had 5 traffic stops.
Yes,
That's one every 10 days.
it's not very good.
It is not good at all.
Mhm.
On the offenses IBR statistics, the same period of time, 60 days, you've got 2 incidences of traffic offense, I think, of traffic by law offenses, and I'm
See
adding
one.
to, one there, but I'm adding to that the driving while intoxicated, which may be the same one.
No.
I don't know.
No,
So let's
that's
say
the
you have
conduct
2.
after.
Let's say you have 2, that's, you know, we're not, I appreciate the interest in aggravated assaults and all of the other major crimes in the world, but our primary concern has to remain highways and safety. Then I think we need to kick that into gear a little bit more. I happen to live on Ledge Hill Road, which is a high-traffic area with high speeds. And I'm not saying you need to patrol my street. I'm saying that if it goes on there, it goes on everywhere. And
I can tell you, 2 of the cases listed here have taken a lot of time. The rape case, there's been a lot of time on that, and the pornography, obscene material cases, we've done a number of search warrants.
So does that take an officer out of patrol to do that?
Yes,
so you're not divesting the patrol officer of the investigation, it's staying with him?
we typically handle our own cases,
Okay.
unless
So you may
somebody needs
wanna-
some help. Unless
maybe-
somebody needs some help, then that's how we do
You
it.
may want to look at that procedure
Yeah.
just a little bit, because your traffic numbers are.
Well, typically, we only have one person on as part of the problem. But like with the rape case, I took over part of it.
Yeah,
The
Sorry.
scene material case, that was, and we've done probably, I want to say 3 or 4 search warrants on that already. And this, the rape case, in fact, we've had to do a number of, contact a number of different agencies in a number of states to get records, and that took a lot of time, because I don't know the numbers to call for all these agencies in state X. So we know the numbers to call, but then we have to try and match up. And it's been, the officers spend a lot of time on faxing, sending,
well, and maybe another conversation now with High Sheriff Ricciardi, that these bigger cases, maybe we need some of their assistance in the investigations. Just a thought. I'm not saying it would work, or I'm not recommending anything. I'm just thinking out loud that we need to spend a little more time on patrol, because I'm not happy with the numbers, and I'm a nice guy. The people who aren't nice guys are really not happy with the numbers. So we need to take a look at that.
I think the number that shows is that we've had 22 incidents involving crimes versus 11 during the same time last year.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying crime is
That's, and then we had an incident out on the lake, which has taken a lot of, number of people we've had to interview and re-interview.
Yeah.
So it's,
I echo what my brother Selectmen is saying. I, of all people, understand the situation you're in with limited resources. That being said, I started this conversation, there's a couple of cases that come to mind, and the Attorney General just complimented you on putting 2 people away who actually, I won't use the word murdered, but caused a death in this town 2 years ago. So I'm trying to be balanced here, like he is. And you know what? You're sitting here listening and being a good listener, so thank you. Did you have another item you wanted to bring up?
no.
I did.
Just in case you were short.
That's right.
To continue, there continue to be trailers and bob houses left at the town beach and in the parking lot. I guess you've been busy, right? And there's one at the end of Lake Street I was asked about.
Okay, I'll also
Okay.
check on those.
Okay, here again, I'm just passing on information.
Great.
Bottom line is thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Have a nice trip. You look great.
Thanks.
Okay. Next up is review and approval of minutes.
Just have the March 12th.
Just have the ones from Tuesday, March 13th.
I thought they were well done.
I'll make a motion we approve.
I see circled the 24th.
Yeah, that was a correction that I'd made after I forwarded the draft one, so I want to make sure that we'll get her.
Did you move?
I did.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right, let's move on to,
Did we have some other non-public that you were working on?
we do have non-public for performance evaluations that we will
I know you were.
go into session after
Nice-
the close of the...
Nice job, by the way.
Thank you. All right, I don't see a signature folder today.
There is
so,
something in there, though.
Let's see what we have.
The
Yeah,
septic.
it is.
All right, so in here we have the septic system. I don't, it would be my preference that we wait to deal with this until Jack is back from his vacation. I had a brief conversation with him on, I think it was Thursday. The library's architect had expressed some concern about exactly where the septic tank was. And before we launch into doing the construction, I want everybody to be on the same page. If it needs to be moved a little bit, it'll get moved a little bit, and then we won't, at some point in the future, be gnashing our teeth because we didn't get it quite where it would work best for everybody. So I want us to get this thing done as soon as we can.
Yes.
But it's more important to get it done right than it is to launch into it immediately and then later discover that we've short-circuited the process.
Who do we have do the design on that? I forget.
Bollinger,
Pardon me?
Chip Bollinger.
Is that
So I hope that-
Bollinger? Yeah, okay.
We don't go through that.
I'm sorry?
Hopefully, we don't have to pay anything for
Right.
running the septic tank. It's going to be-
Oh, no, I'm sorry, it might have been Folsom.
I think Folsom did the design, yeah.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
thinking of another one.
Yeah. So, but I agree. Hopefully there won't be
Yeah.
design change charge. All right. Selectmen's update. Chip?
I've gone through most of what I had as we went through the meeting. One, the CIP needs to be in the town report. Two, the paving needs to be in the town report. The fire.
I'm sorry, what was the second thing you said?
Paving,
Oh, yeah.
right.
Yeah.
We're doing the paving. The other thing we need to do is have a work session, because I think we need to treat last Wednesday as a learning experience as opposed to a day at the stocks.
Correct.
I think the downfall was, in my case, was the assumption that all processes were fully up to speed. They weren't. I think we need to include a calendar, which we have on the wall there, in each file for each warrant article as we go forward next year, and have a timetable and have a particular list so that we know that we're checking off all the boxes going down the line. And if there's needed training on the part of our staff, which there could very well be, we need to make sure we provide them with that training as well, because I honestly don't think anyone went into the Tuesday or Wednesday or the Friday previous to that feeling that they hadn't done everything they needed to do, and all of a sudden it became very obvious that they hadn't. And I think we need to treat that, as I said, like as a learning experience and
Sure.
figure out how to put the processes in place. And I think it's important that we cross-train. Another issue was, you brought up the recording of the votes, the tallying of the votes online. It's a cross-training issue. Or we can absolutely stipulate no vacations during town meeting week, we can do that. But short of that, I think we need to, there's a number of things we need to pick up on.
Sure.
I think it was hard to go through, but I think it's actually beneficial. It's sort of,
Yes.
Well, we blew it, so let's learn from our mistake
Yeah.
and make sure that that doesn't occur again.
you're gonna have a new selectman someday. I mean,
Yeah.
Lloyd got reelected, but
Yeah.
we're not gonna live forever, and we're probably not gonna run forever. So we
Well,
might have
and,
to-
you know, in the state of my memory, it's entirely possible that some of the stuff that I remember now, I'll miss going forward. So there's no reason that we can't have a robust system in place to help us deal with this stuff. Alyssa?
Okay.
Yeah?
I noticed there were questions of how did this happen, or when did this happen, or we need a comprehensive plan, when there is a comprehensive plan, or, requests for information that we're all familiar with. I'm wondering if you could do an overhead, for instance, of CIP plan, someone asks about something, you just scroll up to it, and there's the information. So, some people seem
Like,
to
like,
think.
like have the CIP page
Yeah,
all ready to go?
yeah, so, or you have each warrant article, people can look at it. You could even type in the amendments.
Yeah.
Someone could be doing that, just so that everyone's communicating, because some people seem to get on edge when they feel that information isn't being shared, or they didn't know, when in fact, it is. It has been public, it has been transparent, they just don't know it, they weren't aware of it. But if you had it there, it's not just the selectmen, you have all these committees working, and that
Right.
information is there.
Yeah, I don't know how, I mean, I sort of like Bill's comments before our meeting today, where the Holderness town meeting took
22 minutes.
22 minutes.
And that was long this year.
And I think the more you try to dissect.
So, and
maybe
there are
more-
some things that they do in their process that are a little bit different than ours. But, and they have a reasonable turnout for town meeting. But folks the people that come to town meeting feel that they're fully informed in advance, and that they can deal with these things in a straightforward manner.
So-
And I'm not saying that 22 minutes is where we need to be.
And maybe-
But certainly from some of the questions that we had at the meeting, on information that was available, it's a frustration that, that this stuff is there, but we're not doing as good a job connecting with folks. And we see this with budget hearings, we see it with other public hearings and meetings, as we do get a few people to come out. Generally, it's the same handful of people, maybe a few more, that are always engaged and interested. And so how do we expand that group? And the other thing is, the earlier in the process that people are informed and can raise concerns, issues, ideas, the greater the impact they can have on the process. When a question comes up, once we're at the voting stage on whether it's on the in the budget committee process or at town meeting, there are a limited number of things that you can do in that forum to address the concerns, particularly if it's something that takes some time and research and review to deal with. Yes, sir.
I would just like to say that it's really hard to be a member of the public who's on the other side, to get questions answered when dialogue is shut off at all the meetings you go to. You go to the budget committee, you have to wait till the very end to ask your question. Everything's, and then it's like restarting a particular subject, and everybody wants to go home. Same thing here, we get 2 opportunities at the beginning, at the end. Right now I'm like, thank you so much for letting me speak out of the time slot.
It should be collegial.
It should be collegial. There should be give and take. When the fire department was here was when I should have asked my question, was when he was sitting at the table.
There are
It would
ways
work
to-
much better if that collegial dialogue was available.
There's ways to do it, and unfortunately, there are members of the community that abuse this system, and that it's gone too far the other way, I think.
I think
But
there's a
I
lot of
think-
anger.
Yeah, and over what? I mean, you got nothing better to do than be angry, as far as I'm concerned, because the town isn't going bankrupt, it isn't misspending money, it's just maybe not informing people enough. But I think you're correct in that there's ways to be collegial about the fire chief, for instance, and asking questions during the meeting. There's maybe more opportunity for us to not just live by the statute, but be more informative. Have 2 budget hearings, have 3, I don't care. Or have more open dialogue during the budget process, or more open dialogue during any number of these meetings that we have. But I think it's been, kind of like our evening meetings. There's a point at which you just have to say, no, I'm not doing that anymore. And Max will do as bad about it as anybody. Joe's been bad about it, of abusing the system to make some sort of personal comment about the players. I don't mind talking about the issues all day long. I don't mind having dialogue about the issues all day long. I'm not interested in talking about the players. I really am not. So when there's a call for resignation or you guys are breaking the law or some sort of personal attack, I'm not interested. I'm not at all interested. I'm in it for the money, you know, $5 grand we get. But I'm not interested in personal attacks.
Alyssa?
There are a couple more, I think, opportunities for putting out information to the public. I know when I'm writing my articles, I was paying attention to the decisions you made that pertain to warrant articles, maybe Sodom Road or the septic system, because those were coming up. And hopefully people are following and will ask a question if they don't understand. But Wolfboro uses Wolfboro TV. You're now effectively using YouTube, which is just a wonderful source of communication and a good reference. And now Wolfboro had 35 warrant articles, but they go into the studio and then they record, and people speak to each one. And there are pieces written up if Dave Ford has a road.
But is there a dialogue with the?
No, this is a presentation. This is later than I think what Sue's talking about. But so if you have roads, he has a list of which roads are being done. It's right up there. It's all in the schedule. It's all in an Excel sheet. So anyway, that is made available. So someone can go back and look at that YouTube. And if you're really interested in roads, you can study what that road schedule is, because they have so much infrastructure stuff.
Well, and with respect to the roads, my recollection is that generally the roads that we're planning to pave are identified as part of the conversation at town meeting. This year, it's sort of up in the air, and we had agreed that in the spring we're going to take a look at the condition of some of these roads that and roads that are in the mix.
So in that case, excuse me for interrupting, but you might say, here's our road budget, and we have a paving study, and this is what we expect the paving study
Well,
to do.
the paving study isn't going to
So
give us...
people know that it's happening, everyone
The paving
knows.
study's not going to give us information for this year, because it's going to be done this year. The roads that we're going to have to pave this year are really going to be the result of...
Right, so what I'm
a
saying
spring
is,
look.
if that's not what you have, you all are in charge of marketing your information. And what you have is, you're gonna have a paving study, and, you know.
Yeah, and we
you've had
explained
one-
that, but I mean, part of the marketing of your information is to have your sales force on hand. We didn't have the road agent there at town meeting. So,
Well, he could be in the YouTube.
well, no, I mean, you're talking about apples and oranges to a certain degree, because that's my last point. I'll stop talking. But I've heard a lot of talk back and forth out in the community about going SB2. I think that would be the worst thing in the world for Tuftonboro to do. But that's what Wolfboro does. So the only opportunity you really have are the hearings or YouTube or the television. I mean, our opportunity remains
That's right,
town
that's
meeting.
right, they have to do it, yeah.
Right. Our opportunity remains town meeting, and I think it's important that we, and lastly, I mean, to the meeting, there hasn't been allowed to be a dialogue. When you ask a question, we couldn't have this same interchange vis-a-vis the warrant article on the library reserve fund at town meeting, because I was informed a couple of times by our moderator to talk to him. When I answer or make a statement, I'm making it through the moderator.
Yes.
I'm not certain that particular structure works in this day and age as much as it
Well,
may.
those are the rules of the town meeting unless the body changes.
Yeah, I just think it's more difficult for us to have, you ask a question, I answer the question, it doesn't answer it completely in your mind, but now.
But
he's
now
on-
I've had to
You've
sit
had
down
your
and
shot.
let somebody else go.
And
Yeah.
I think
Well,
that
plus
goes to
the
your point of,
acoustics, the microphones, all of that also further complicates.
yeah, but I think it goes to your point of collegiality. I mean, it's harder to get to the bottom of the issue if you're not allowed more than one question with, at any rate, I think, I appreciate the problem, I agree with you that there is an issue.
But it's there at budget meetings, it's there at the budget hearing. It's hard for people who aren't happy with something to speak up. It's hard because you're facing, decisions that have already been made and, well considered, blah, blah, blah. So I think sometimes that factor gets lost in them.
I want to speak.
So it's part of what it comes back to is that in those forums, we have what I would refer to as grandstanders, in addition to people that are actually trying to have a positive influence on the result. So when we have individuals that stand up at a budget committee hearing, meeting, and rail against an individual that's on the budget committee.
Yeah, that's completely inappropriate.
It
But-
is, but one of the things one of the effects that has is it adjusts the behavior of everybody else that's in there, because you have to, in order to have the business of the meeting take place, you have to work toward the worst common denominator, if you will, in terms of input that you're getting from folks that are at the meeting. And so it's not an easy answer.
No, it isn't, because once a person, is a troublemaker, then everybody assumes they're a troublemaker and automatically votes the other way,
Or doesn't listen.
or doesn't listen.
Right.
And I mean, we've had incidents, I've been confronted by people before meetings even start saying, now, don't you cause trouble tonight, we're all friends here. I'm like, okay, and there was a worse incident of it this year, it didn't involve me, but
And
Is that something you,
No.
if people will stay with the topic, stay with the issue, they can get as loud and crazy as they want, as long as they're on point with the issue. That's, I don't know, but I think we need to lead by example. I think you're right that today's meeting, in my mind, worked better than some of the first meetings that I was coming to here last year. And it's because allowing input from one way or another, because there
this
are.
we're having right now,
Yeah.
I
there-
think is
I don't want there to be 5 or 6 or 7 selectmen. I don't think that's appropriate.